I don't know, several years ago, and um, got split up from a group of friends. They were like barricading off a road, and I'm like, hey, I saw the police officer. I'm like, can I join them? Because otherwise I was gonna have to walk blocks to get to where they're going. And I
Right.
showed them my military ID, and they're like, what is that? But then once they found out what it was, like, opened up the red carpet and escorted me there.
Yeah, yeah.
So it just kind of surprised me that, um, you know, like here in Florida, everybody is familiar with the military. There's several bases throughout Florida, and everybody knows someone in the military. But I got the impression that up there, it's not common to know somebody in the military.
Not in the
So I
city.
could, yeah, and I could explain why. I could explain very easily why the police officer reacted that way. One, yeah, there's no bases around here. You don't really see it. The only kind of interaction the city gets with the military is Fleet Week. Fleet Week pulls up, all the sailors come. We see them
that's
at all the
not
Broadway
a good
shows.
experience.
The Knicks, they go to all the big events, the Knicks games and all that stuff, and the Nets games, that you see them pop up on the Today Show and all that stuff. So that's really the only interaction that we get. There's really no base. There's the maritime school, but that's even that's outside of the city. But when it comes to a New York City police officer, and you're in New York City, it's the bullshit capital of the world. So they're used to people always trying to get over, always trying to get special treatment. So they see you pull out a little ID. They're like, all right, what is this? Kind of like flight attendants dealing with someone who thinks they have, some sort of status on the plane. It's like, all right, what's your story? Who
Like
do
the
you
pilots?
think you are? Yeah, exactly. Like the pilots, like anybody of high status, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, all right, bro, what do you got? All right, yeah, okay. I'll get to you when I get to you. But then he obviously realized what the deal was and and took care of you. But yeah, New York City is it's not like that at all. And I feel like even in at the airport, right? Since we work in the industry, when you fly out of the Newark or New York airports and they ask any military, active duty members come, to board the plane, I almost never see anybody, take advantage of that or be active in my 10
That's
years in the
crazy.
industry. Yeah, it's almost never a thing. No one ever walks up,
But in Florida,
yeah.
that line is as long as the general boarding line.
Is it really?
There's a lot of people. No, it's not. It's actually not that bad. And I will say, I've seen guys in uniform when they say that won't do it. They won't jump in front. And that, and I'm in the military too, and I usually don't mention it unless they ask, so where'd you get your flying and all that. But when you see stuff like that, that just goes to show the character of these guys and girls out there fighting the fight, man. It kind of gives me goosebumps when you see a guy in uniform or one of the women in uniform and they still won't jump in front of everybody. No, I'm okay. They almost not embarrassingly, but like, just protecting in that protective way, like they've been trained. So it's kind of cool. It's an experience. We're glad you did your service though, man. It wasn't the same. Well, when you got there, you definitely enhanced the place. I will say that, Tyler. So it was a lot of fun being able to fly with you, and the history that I had with you was good stuff. So I know
I was an easy target, Jordan. Easy target.
I was hoping you'd be able to read between the lines.
If you're gonna fling some jokes, like, they would stick to me, and part of it's because I'm massive, wide.
No,
like
not just massive wide. He's friggin' huge. First of all, he's like 6'4". How tall are you? 6'4"? Are you taller than Zach?
Probably the same height. I'll bet Zach's 6'4", 6'3".
Yeah, I think he's about 6'4", 6'3", 6'4". Yeah. You're a solid 6'4", and solid like this way. You're not, and I wouldn't say fat. I don't know. You may got a chub, but
there was earlier in my career, I think it might have been you, Brandon, tried to get the call sign Max Pickle because I filled out my flight suit. Was that you? I don't remember.
No, it wasn't. I was there when that was given, though. We tried to get your call sign to be Pickle. Yeah. Well, you know what the flight suit looks like, Jay. It's a green, right? And he was stretching. The thing about it, though, there was somebody else that was really testing the tensile strength of the flight suit. So we couldn't pick on you, because you're huge, you're bigger than us. But the other guys, we definitely could, because they were worse, man.
So a couple of things.
We won't name names.
So a couple of things, Tyler, bro. Tyler, I'm in the fluffy gang with you, bro. I am no little
dude.
guy.
Dad bods are in. I'm just taking advantage of it.
My dad bod is strong, and I have zero kids. Zero kids. I have an Olympic form dad bod right now. All right, so I'm with you, and I get it all in the midsection. I don't get it anywhere else. Yeah. But my first question is from that story. Is there no like height weight requirement for a flight crew in the Air Force?
Yep. As a matter of fact.
So we can talk height first.
Yeah.
And they break it down pretty good, right? And a majority of it's sitting height for the training aircraft primarily. You know, I was disqualified from a couple other branches because of my sitting height. But the Air Force had new training aircraft, and it wasn't a problem.
You did the T6, right? The new T6.
Mm-hmm. T6, yeah. Yep. So, and then obviously the tanker, there's plenty of room in there. So, the weight thing, it's not so much weight, but it's waist measurement. And I spent the first 9 years of my career as a mechanic, and not even really like overweight by military standards. And I'd always done well on PT tests. And when I was going through pilot training, at the end of my pilot training was the first time they introduced the waist measurement, which was part of the PT test, right? Push-ups, sit-ups, run, and waist measurement. Well, I had always done really well on the PT test. And right. I never measured my waist, like, you know, because of my size, like I didn't really even think it was even a borderline thing. And then literally at the end of pilot training, 2 weeks before I'm supposed to walk with my class, we have a PT test, and I failed it because of my waist measurement. Because it's like, it's a cut and dry number. And I was, you know, half inch or an inch over. So yeah, they wouldn't let me walk with my class. I had to graduate with the next class, which, you know, is kind of a bummer. Some of these guys flew down for it and proceeded to make fun of me for the rest of my career.
Without question. I remember that. Yeah. I wasn't one of the guys that went because I didn't know Tyler that well. I had gotten to the unit, interviewed, and got hired while he was gone. And then these guys were, oh yeah, we're gonna go watch Tyler, and then all this happened, and the stories came back. I'm like, wait, what? And at the time, I was kind of like this. I was like a fitness guru, or at least I thought I was. I don't know. Genetics, man, it has nothing to do with my work ethic. So all this got back to us, and we're like, oh, we can't wait till this dude gets back. And sure enough, dude, we were lighting into him.
Walking back into the snake pit.
Oh my gosh, we're horrible. I love it.
But you're still here, man. You're still here. So.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing too. You know, like our squadron's relatively notorious for being brutally honest, or just brutal. Maybe honesty might not need to be a prerequisite. And I was talking to a buddy, him and his wife actually, years later after he'd gotten out, and she's like, I hate how you guys talk to each other. And I'm like, you know, I see what you're saying, but it's kind of prepared us for life. And the fact that there's nothing that somebody can throw at us verbally that's really going to affect us. Right. Because nobody else is going to be as brutally honest as the people in our squadron were with us. And trying to get a reaction out of you. So it's definitely made, you know, in a culture where people are easily offended, there's a group roaming Tampa, Florida, who can't be offended.
Literally, we've got the thickest skin I have ever seen. We are so, and then, you know, coming from New York, you think, you know, the dozens, you grew up just kind of with that. Until here, like I found home. I'm like, oh wait, we can really get after each other. And I think it honed some serious relationships, like in a good way. Like brothers and sisters, man, we're after each other, but we love each other at the same time, and would do anything. And we've seen it, obviously. We put our lives in each other's hands.
So let me ask this question. I mean, any group of people, any size, shape, color, religious background, anything, any kind of massive or traumatic like shared experience develops a brother and a sisterhood, right? Like it's just natural, right?
Yeah.
That's why fraternities are a big thing. Like I'm in a multicultural fraternity, and just having that shared experience with people, I've developed legitimately like lifelong bonds and friendships that can't be broken or explained, right? But my question for you guys, being Air Force, being pilots, like all this stuff, those are some like really manly, like machismo spaces. Like, do you guys also feel comfortable like in quarantine if you were struggling or sad? You know, do you feel like you guys are able to have those conversations as well? Or do you feel like, oh, I just use another group of friends for that kind of like support?
You know, it's funny you mentioned that, because that's kind of the behind the scenes premise of this show, is kind of getting, during this time, it was tough for a lot of people. And unfortunately, Zach had to drop off because, you know, he's transiting. He'll be back on it. He'll be the first. And he was actually the first one to really, during one of the shows we had with him. So to his credit, he was actually one of the first ones to really bring it up and say, hey, I'm having a hard time with this thing. And I kind of mentioned, like I just did with you, like that was the reason why we wanted to do this. One of the main reasons is that let's get guys together that we know and love, and we want to make sure get through this thing. Let's talk, let's fellowship, let's have a drink and just relax and just talk shop and shit, and you know, get stuff off your chest and see where it goes. And so to your credit, yeah, that's a great question. This is kind of that. But I'll remind you that we're the Air Force, so we're considered not the most manly of the.
Where were the Marines go to talk about their feelings?
So when the real soldiers, like the Marines and the Army and some of these Navy guys, when they feel, you know, they need to talk to someone, they come to us.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, you're right.
But I
think
think that you know, everybody, I think, has people inside and outside the squadron they'll confide in.
You know, even if we don't confide, I think the brotherhood that we have, and we find other ways together to express ourselves in a way that allows us to kind of get things off our chest and just be better the next day. You know, whether it be going out and drinking, or we do, you know, frisbee golf or whatever together, or we just kind of do stuff. You know,
y'all frisbee golfing? I want in on some frisbee golf.
I just learned a new. Tyler, what's the name of that
golf?
What was the name of the little drinking game that these guys are playing? I don't know if there's a name.
Oh yeah, I don't know what it's called, but yeah.
I just learned that it's a great. I got to show you, Joe, next time we're at the beach, which I don't know. We got to do that.
I'm actually in Orlando. I'm actually in Orlando next week. Or tomorrow.
You know, it's crazy. We got a pretty good connection too, because like my extended family and your family became family, and we didn't even know that we're working for each other.
Yeah, they
overlaps.
Yeah, they overlap.
We start talking
one of my
about
favorite stories ever.
Yeah, well, how did it come up? You actually asked me, or I think I may have asked you.
Yeah,
no,
so
you asked me.
Right. So what it is Brandon's best friend, one of his childhood best friends, TJ, is married to a woman who I basically consider a sister. I've known her since I was a kid. She went to college with my two older brothers. She was my one brother's long-term girlfriend while in college. So she's literally known me since like 8 years old, like a baby. And I'm 36 now. And for years, I'd see them, especially early on in my career, I'd go down to Orlando and see them. And how do you like it? Whatever, blah, blah. And they'd be like, oh, TJ's best friend works at United. He's a pilot. But, you know, flight attendants and pilots, you know, unfortunately, flow in different circles, you know, whatever the case may be. But I only ever had one pilot friend that I considered a friend, right? So, and Brandon's that guy, young, good-looking dude, Latino, looks like me, talks like me, and we were doing a lot of these, 7-day London trips and 6-day London trips, 6-day Manchester trips, and all this stuff. And we would do those together a lot. And I was like, I early on considered him a friend, and I was just like, all right, cool, he's dope. So every time my family friend would bring that up, I don't know any pilots, so I'm not asking the question. I'm not like, oh, who is he? I've already assumed in my mind, I don't know the guy. There's no way that I know the guy. We come to find out later that he was doing the exact same thing. Brandon was like, all right, cool, yeah, flight attendants. I come in contact with them constantly, all the time.
Look for him. I don't know.
Yeah, all right, cool, whatever. And then a few years back, maybe like 4 years back, not even that long ago, I'm over there for Thanksgiving. TJ, his buddy, is there, and they bring it up again. And this time I literally say to myself, all right, finally ask the question. And I'm like, what's your friend's name? And they go, Brandon. And I go, Brandon Acosta? Because it's literally the only pilot name I know. And they're like, yeah, him. And I'm like, what? So then it gets crazier, right? Because it's one thing for TJ and his wife to know Brandon, but then my brother, he's the oldest brother, and he's the sibling that I'm closest to, that I have a really tight relationship with. He goes, wait, Brandon's been to this house. And I'm like, wait, what? He goes, Brandon knows your nephews. And now I'm going even crazier. And then TJ goes, he walked down the aisle with your sister-in-law at our wedding.
Wow.
That's right. It was crazy, man.
At this point, I've lost it. I'm just like, you guys never pushed the story. Like, it's your fault also. It was nuts. And then like a week later, him and I worked the trip together to Tel Aviv, and we got to talk about all of this. And I was like, you're kind of like my brother now. I don't know how you feel, but that's how all of this translates now. Like, you knew my family. And then we're sitting there having a drink, and he goes, oh yeah, so what about your nephews? And starts naming them by name. And I'm like, this is just nuts. Like, this is crazy. So that's one of my favorite stories. And yeah, he's my brother now. It just naturally progressed to that.
It's
Can't help it.
definitely all family, man. It's just an amazing testament to aviation being this small world, and you just never know how you're connected to somebody. That's probably one of the most, like, one of those stories. You're like, what? Really?
Yeah. What are the chances?
His brother's got these 4 boys that are amazing. All 4 boys, and his wife is a lawyer. Like, this man put his wife through school all while they had 4 boys growing up. I'm like,
she missed one of her law finals because she had to go give birth, and then gave birth, and she was like, all right, I got to go back and take this test.
Wow.
And they were like, no, you can't go nowhere. And she's like, no, I've done this 3 other times. Like, it's fine. I've been studying for this final. I gotta go. Yeah, she's a rock star.
Beast.
She's nuts.
She's a beast. Definitely a shout out. No, and it's just a small world. And it's also one of those stories. I mean, it's kind of like what we were talking about, that gives you like kind of relief that you're on the right track. You're doing the right thing. You're flying what you're supposed to fly. You're where you're supposed to be. Back then, I was where I was supposed to be. You know what I mean? Like, and it's all culminates to like things like this, being able to fly with some great people and have some great memories. So,
and we decided to have a blast that night.
Oh yeah, forget it.
We had a great time. It was a great trip for sure.
It was a great trip. We gotta do it more of it, but who knows now?
I know, man. I know. I haven't been on a plane in a year. Tomorrow's supposed to be I'm trying to non-rev down to Orlando. Tomorrow potentially is going to be the first time I'm on a plane in literally over a year.
Forget working it.
Forget working, period. I've been in New York since I haven't gone anywhere. So, and it's weird. Like, it used to be so loosey-goosey and a non-factor, and I'm nervous about tomorrow. Like, I'm nervous. I don't think I could use KCM because I've been inactive for so long. So, like, I think I have to go through regular security.
Here's the thing. Try anyway, because you never know.
This is true.
Let them tell you. No, you can't.
You asked us, you know, confiding amongst each other,
Mhm.
and not necessarily asking you to confide, but you're obviously welcome to. But like, we're in Florida where COVID is an afterthought, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
our experience with COVID is putting on a mask when you walk in a restaurant and you take it off when you sit down.
Mhm.
Other than that, it's pretty open. How has your experience been with New York?
Certainly the polar opposite from that, even though that has become more of an experience lately with the restaurants opening up a little bit more. So there has been more of a walking in, take off the mask, sit down. But in the heart of it, it felt like a war zone, early April, May, those months. I mean, it was scary. For example, I grew up in a Hasidic Jewish neighborhood in Brooklyn. And so my parents still live there because it's a great, safe, quiet place of Brooklyn to live. But it's millions, what feels like millions of Hasidic Jews just this is their center,
Mm-hmm.
that's where they live. It's their bubble. They don't leave it. And we grew up in the heart of that. And they never took any precautions. So my parents are in their 70s, my dad nearly 80s, and no one is taking any precautions early on. Then they shut down the synagogues, and we're in a community, and you've got 80 Hasidic Jews out, praying outside of my mom's window, none of them wearing masks, and we're in the heart of the pandemic. Tons of them are dying in the buildings. Like, oh, the lady down the hall passed away. The Hasidic rabbi upstairs has died. And so it was really scary for me because I obviously no longer live at home, and I'm scared to go over there to check on them, but I got to see if they're okay. They were in complete lockdown, couldn't even go to the trash compactor and throw out their trash. We leave it out the door, we'll go get it. You know what I'm saying? That kind of stuff. So it was really, really scary, and it still is scary. I'm in a where I live now is a predominantly Latino community. And we're a lively bunch. We like to be outside, music playing on the stoop, playing games. And COVID started to get bad, and that's those summer months, and people are itching to get outdoors. So I'd go out just for a slice of pizza real quick, and everybody's on the block playing music, dancing together, not wearing a mask initially, and it was just like, I gotta run back home. So it was certainly a different experience because people are on top of each other. If someone's making a different lifestyle choice than you are, but their house is, it's only one house, 5 people, and it's 100 feet away, that's different than, stepping outside of an apartment building that has 6 floors and 50 apartments on every floor, and no one else in the building is wearing masks except you. You're scared to touch the elevator button. So it was definitely a different experience. But I
That's a
just got
good
my
point,
first.
though, and I think that's why they've taken those precautions.
Yeah, I just got my first vaccination dose yesterday. So, and that's a whole nother conversation, of course, but I just thought
Feeling good?
How do you feel?
I feel
Yeah, how do you
good.
feel?
I feel good. I thought this, everyone said the second day could be a lot worse, or you could feel a little sick or down. My energy's been up. I've done a good job of hydrating, but no headache, no kind of
I thought it was
coughing or
after the
sneezing,
second
anything.
shot.
I heard the second shot gets crazy, but some of
Yeah.
some of my friends had that kind of experience from the first shot as
Oh,
well.
wow.
So
Damn.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, we actually had a flight doc on a few weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago now, talked about how and why that second shot is potentially worse. But I don't remember exactly what he said. But essentially, I'm not even going to try to replicate it. But go back to the one with Doc O, and he can explain why. It's at the end of the episode. But
Gotcha.
He does explain it, and he talks about the mutations, and because I asked the question about how mutations happen, and I thought the vaccination was supposed to attach to the part of the proteins that don't mutate.
Change.
Kind of was
Yeah.
like, yeah. And then after that, he explained stuff that went right over the heads.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you really want a true explanation from an actual doctor, go listen to that podcast. It was 2 podcasts ago. I don't know.
Really quickly, we don't have to get too much into it, but are you
Yeah.
guys getting it or considering it? Because so for me, during the quarantine, my dad fell ill, and there was a pretty bad diagnosis or whatever. And me, I was like, okay, if I go back to work, there's no way I feel comfortable going back to work where a mask is my only protection, and then I need to
Yeah.
come back and help with my dad or whatever the case may be. So I had to put all my like skeptical ideas and thoughts and fears aside. I was like, there's a bigger picture here for me with going back to work. So I'm curious what's it like for you guys? And I mean, you guys are locked behind the cockpit door. Is certainly a different. You're not really touching hands and things like that. But I mean, I'm sure there still has to be some sort of fear, if at all.
I had COVID back in July.
Okay.
So
the antibodies and stuff.
Yeah. I'm sure I'll get it. I'm not opposed to getting it. I feel like there's a lot more people that should probably go before me.
Yeah.
There's only like a handful of documented cases worldwide that it's even, people catching it twice. And, I'm not too concerned about it. So from that perspective, maybe next year I'll get it, but I'm not racing to it. I definitely understand, like if I didn't have it and I was at home and taking care of my parents, then I would have been standing at the front of the line. But
Right.
I have an 8-year-old chocolate lab who relies on me, and that's about it.
So. 8-year-old chocolate lab who you apparently can't remember how old she is.
Right? 4 and 8 is like a huge discrepancy.
4 and 8 divide by.
I was gonna say 4-legged 8-year-old. I don't know. I'm not good with words, math, whatever.
Gotcha. What about you, Brandon? I'm curious.
Man, I don't know. You got to understand, like, I've been doped up, and Tyler too, been poked and prodded with vaccinations, half the stuff we don't understand or get over the last 20 some odd years in the military.
Anthrax.
See, that's a perspective I've never even thought of. I have no experience with that.
That doesn't mean that we're vaccinated from anything, but it's just like, and some of those experiences weren't good. There was a time where they kind of rushed a vaccination. I won't get into too much detail, but people got hurt from it.
I know.
It was lasting,
effects.
It was bad. So I'm not crazy about a rush vaccination. I know they say it's safe, and it might be, but and I'm more on inclination from a different perspective, like Tyler. Let's let other people kind of get it that really are in a place where they feel that they need to take care of someone, or they don't want to give it to certain people. I'll wait. And hopefully enough people around me are vaccinated to where, they create this wall around me. I don't know.
the herd, and, it's the herd. They call it the herd immunity.
The herd immunity. So hopefully that'll take hold and I won't have to worry about it. But I mean, they may make it something like the flu where you got to get it every year. So who knows? And, if the company says you have to do it to go, or some other country says you have to have it before you fly into their airspace type of thing, and I guess I'm getting it.
Which seems inevitable, to be honest with you.
It does. London just shut down again. We got a note that London's they kind of shut it down where you can't even leave your hotel room as air crew. So, it might get to that, and if it does,
that was a big anxiety for me. That was a big anxiety for me as well about going back to work. Like, I love my job. I love it. The only thing I think topping it was like if I went to flight school and became a pilot. But I love my job. It's the perfect job for me, my skill set, my personality, all that kind of thing. Much. And I'm really worried about going back and now hating it and it not being what it was, and then having to feel like, shit, I have to do something else. That's a big fear of mine. You know what I'm saying?
Well, here's the thing. When it comes to something like that, it's not going to be the same. It's different. I've actually gone on the plane for training and for one other event, and it's different. It's not the same environment. I think it'll normalize and it'll settle, just like things did after 9/11. There's been a lot of protocols, and we got used to it. This is going to be one of those situations that tests people, and you really got to get through it. So your fears, although your fears are they're viable, right? You don't want them to change. It's different. It's
going
in.
Yeah. It's changed already.
Yeah, it is. And it, not to say it's not as much fun. It's just different. And I guess that does take some of the fun out of it. So,
and your customer interaction is going to be different because half of them are going to despise the fact that they're wearing a mask, and but hopefully here in a couple months we can get back to relative normality and whatnot. So
it looks like planes are full. I can't, like, my flight to Orlando tomorrow doesn't look like an easy thing. I mean, and there's like 6 or 7 flights tomorrow, and they're all full.
They're full.
So
every flight that I've been on, and I'm in the airports. Man, I was in Chicago. Wow. I was going through Chicago on the way to somewhere. Where was I? I was going somewhere, I don't remember. And Chicago was full. It was, I couldn't believe it. And I guess I think that was my first time in the airport, in an airport, a major airport outside of Orlando. Well, Orlando wasn't even that bit full.
TSA numbers, I can check them right now.
Yeah, they've gone up pretty significantly. We get these reports too. I usually don't pay attention to them, but
that seems about right.
Yeah, that's about right. I'm too busy trying to fly the plane, man. I can't be bothered with numbers,
Makes sense to me.
It looks like this is March 23rd data.
Okay.
For 2021. Yesterday. Yep. We'll round up to 1.1 million.
Where was it last year?
Last year, 330,000.
Wow.
2019.
This is one airport? I'm sorry.
This is all the travelers through TSA on March 23rd.
So we're almost back up. Well, what was it in 2019? You're right.
2019 is the key, right?
4.4 million.
2.4.
Okay, so double.
So yeah, we're basically half, but we're triple where we were this time last year.
Yeah, last year, right? Last year.
And March is when it really, people really started getting scared and tripping. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So we're getting there. The
21st was over 1.5, and the 2019 equivalent was 2.2. So I would say we're somewhere between, 50 and 70%, depending on the day. So
that's a good number. That's an interesting number.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, we're getting back. We're gonna get back. Yep. We're back, baby. It's happening.
Yep. And the vaccine's just gonna more people, what we need is for all those other industries to catch up. The event industry in Vegas needs to, people need to go and do face-to-face business again. Obviously Zoom has enabled a lot of business, and I think it'll actually account for a large majority of that face-to-face business for people not co-located. But I think some of those big events need to get spun back up here in the next 6 to 8 months, hopefully.
And that's interesting. I didn't think about that either. That's going to really affect like that first class clientele. That first class clientele, that high status clientele at all the different airlines. So that's interesting. I didn't think about that. But some businesses aren't going back to person. Twitter told their employees, come back whenever you want.
Yeah.
Wow. Just come back whenever, huh?
Or actually, I think they said don't, because I think they sold the property. Like they were like, we're spending money on property we don't really need.
Oh, yeah. A lot of companies are doing that. That's
Office space. Office space is ghost town.
For individual companies, but what is starting to boom is those shared spaces. Like if you need a desk, come on through. But like
that's huge in New York City.
Oh yeah,
that's huge here.
Yeah.
I just hope people have the opportunity, the option, right? Like some people want to go to the office. Like they can focus. They don't have the kids there. They don't have the dogs there. They can get away and socialize. Where some people, they would rather be at their home office. Some people would do half the week in each location, you know. Hopefully this proves that productivity can still be done be accomplished remotely. But provide a better work-life balance, so to speak, you know.
I love it when friends would ask me, like, so are you working from home?
Right,
Jordan, what's the deal? What's going on with you? Are you working from home? I'm like, I can't really do that at my job. They're like, huh? I was like, yeah, I'm a flight attendant. I got to be on the plane. They're like, oh yeah, of course. How could I? What was I thinking?
You should have like started like a remote concierge service amongst flight attendant networks with their worldwide connections.
Yeah, right. That'd be something. That might, you know what? Write that down, Jay. That might be something.
I see what he's saying. Yeah.
That might be a good look.
I see that.
I don't think Zach's gonna make it back, man. We lost him. We lost him forever.
Yep. He gone.
Yeah, he was on a moving situation.
That was dedication to Furlough Friday, though. Honestly,
he's one of our residents, dude. I love when the dude's on the show.
Dedication.
And you know what? It's funny. He was telling me earlier that he had some questions, some stories to ask about a guy he recently flew with down to Central or South America, Central America, I think, not to Gooch, but somewhere else, about the differences in the Latin cultures within Latin culture, you know, like Dominican or South. Well, even I think it was more general than that. It was like South America, Central America, the Caribbean Hispanic community, those in the United States, and he was bewildered by the education he got from this. I think the captain he flew with was Cuban, and so he starts asking me these questions. I'll tell you what, I got a guy coming on the show today. You could ask him these same questions and you're going to get some good feedback from us both. So, but unfortunately he couldn't get back on, but it's not his.
Those are night and day differences.
They're interesting answers depending on who you ask. So
yeah, this is true.
And so I wish, I had the,
I had one quick question from the squad. Cause you talked about Zach. But yeah, no, you brought Zach back up. How big is that? How large? What's the amount of brothers in that like squad that you consider like that tight circle of your guys? How many guys?
Pilots? There's what, 47?
I want to say there's like 80 pilots and booms, but it's 2/3 pilots.
Yeah. Okay.
So low 60s maybe.
Really? Is it that many of it?
Mm-hmm.
Man, we grew then from when I was there. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
And how many of them would you guys consider like your inner circle, like your close group of friends?
I'm out of the mix, and I think it's changed since I was there. But the inner circle to which I knew when I was flying there,
or that you operate now, like you and Tyler and your close boys.
12, 15.
Yeah, about 15 of us.
That's a big number.
Yeah. And I would say that was a 15 out of the 40 that I remember.
Yeah.
But that were tight. That we, if you saw them on the schedule, you're like, all right, we're gonna have a good time, type of thing.
Yeah.
I would say, but that's all
the other 30 or 25 though, you didn't dislike.
Exactly. I was gonna.
No.
Typically, we hired them. I mean, we were on the hiring board. Yep. Those 15 or whatever, we were typically the guys in charge of hiring folks on. So, in kind of like old school airline fashion, you hire folks you can sit next to for 7 hours or go to some distant land and, have a dinner with or a drink or something. So that's kind of what you want to hire. And we definitely did that in the Guard Reserve structure. Active duty is a different story. You can't really do that, and not to say, and some places got in trouble for a lot of discrimination and I honestly don't feel, and I might be naive in this, I probably am, but I honestly don't feel that any of that had to do with kind of the race, the creed, the color, the
It was a personality vibe
rotation,
thing or whatever the
yeah,
case may be.
especially in our unit, man, because we had everything. Probably one of the, I mean, to kind of bring it back to that, not for any particular reason, but it just sticks out. Probably one of the best leaders we had, and just a guy that you would just, you know, he said march through fire, you would happen to be gay. And you know, lieutenant colonel, he went to the Air Force Academy, and it's unfortunate, good majority of his life he had to hide it. And you know, he was older, he's about a generation ahead of me, so if that gives you any indication kind of where he was at. But it was crazy when he we're all flying, and I was his co-pilot at the time, or maybe I was sitting in the jump seat or something, I don't know. But Tyler, you remember this? Maybe
I heard the story. I wasn't
basically
there.
he came out to other guys in his peer group. So I was the young buck on the crew, and there were other folks that he respected and loved, and they loved him and whatever, that were on the crew. And he basically
Over the radio.
And this is the reason why. This is when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was rescinded. The very day it was rescinded, wow. And he made a promise to his partner, and his partner's good people. I won't name names, but his partner's good, great dude too. He made a promise to him that if they ever rescinded this Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy on that day, I'm going to let the people know who I fly with, the deal.
Wow.
And sure as shit as he did. And it was the craziest, it was the coolest moment. Like, it gives me goosebumps to this day, because it's like, you know, everybody knew. We knew. Like, he goes, "Hey, I got something to tell you guys." And we're like, "All right, what's up?" And Gary, well, I won't name names, but Gary was in the one seat, and he says what he says, like, "Hey, I just want to let you guys know that I've been dealing with this, and I said I would do this, so I'm doing it." Bam, here it is. Hit us between the eyes, and Gary's response, and we all kind of looked at him. Gary's like, "Yeah, we know." and then he looked back at me. I'm like, "Are you kidding? Of course, it's cool. Yeah, we knew." As a matter of fact, we were hoping so, because it explains a lot, you know. It explains your good fashion sense, and you know how you're always so done up very well. And he goes,
"You look great in that uniform, sir."
He goes, "Really? You guys knew?" And we're like, "Come on, man. Yeah, we're like brothers, dude. How you can't keep stuff from us like that? Of course we knew." So, you know, that and it was one of those unique moments where it's like, and the fact that you wanted to come out to us type of thing, we love you that much more, you know, is one of those things. So it was kind of cool how that all went down. But we got a tight group. We had a really good mix there for a while. When I came on, I remember just hiring a great mix of people, guys and girls. I think, you know, one of the women that was hired as a pilot, she might have been the first woman that unit had for a long time, or at all. I don't know, Tyler, if you remember.
That was before my time. She was hired before I got there.
She was, okay. So yeah, going back through a little bit of squadron history, I believe that was the case. And again, I don't think it was an intentional thing. I think it's more cultural. That's where we were, and that's what we did, or that's what they did. I wasn't part of the unit either at that point. But it's good to see the change. Good to see the arc, the character arc kind of get there. So it was kind of neat. But no, we had a good group. Solid.
More than anything, we evaluate, do we want to drink beer with you after we land?
Yeah,
anything
of course.
Else.
Yeah. So. It's all about curating the experience, right? Mm-hmm. You know, you curate the people you want to be around. Like, I got really lucky, right? So I'm in this multicultural fraternity, like I mentioned, and it has a sister sorority, right? And I become a flight attendant 2012. I know of one other, she's a sister, she's in the sorority, who at the time was a JetBlue flight attendant, right? So I go to her, I'm like, "Hey, I'm doing this thing, I'm really excited." She's like, "Oh yeah, great." I don't really know her that well. I knew of her, I've hung out with her a very few amount of time. She went to school in Orlando and then was now living in New York. So I didn't even know her in college. So I go to training or whatever, blah, blah, become a flight attendant. So now it's her and I. And now all of a sudden we start getting messages of other brothers and sisters that want to become flight attendants. So now we have a group of people that are in a fraternity within the fraternity. You know what I'm saying? And it's funny. We get along. We have very similar interests and personalities. So we travel together. Every time a new member comes, we all go to their graduation in uniform
Awesome.
for the different airlines, that we fly for, and we get them a cool passport cover that's a color of the airline that they became a flight attendant for, and stuff like that. We do Christmas events together. We travel together, and now we have these two very distinct shared experiences. You know what I'm saying? And it's awesome. It's like it's amazing, and it's really really cool. It's fun. So I can't even imagine what it's like having, your squad together as well. It's a lot of fun.
So let me ask you this: are you single?
Currently, yes.
Okay, so then I can ask you this without you getting in trouble. How does being a straight flight attendant work with the straight female flight attendants?
Oh my God, what a question.
Great question.
It is a great question. And here's the thing, he still may not be able to answer it.
Touche.
It's not as it's not as easy or as smooth as you think it would be. Unfortunately, thanks to a lot of you pilot assholes.
Oh, I knew you were gonna blame us.
You've ruined it for the rest of us. Every hot, young, good-looking flight attendant has a horrible pilot story, and they've decided to write off anyone else in the industry. So thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for ruining it for the rest of us.
Well, here's the thing, Jay. You got first crack at him before we do.
No, the more money does. Stop lying to yourself, bro.
Well, you see what you did there? Now you're stereotyping the girls, and they don't appreciate that.
And you have and you guys, some of you guys, well, the good-looking young ones. I don't know about these grandpas. You guys look cooler with the hat and in the uniform.
It is a cool look, I will say.
Does your airline have a fedora, Brandon?
He's working on it. He's trying to get them to push it.
I try to get them to change it. They won't do it. It's not okay.
When he's in the next safety demo, that's when he's going to put forth the proposal.
That's when you get power. Have you been in one of those yet? I can't do it. They haven't. I haven't been chosen.
But no,
did you know he was best dressed at his airline a couple years ago?
No, you were not. Who was?
Brandon.
Every time I go into the chief pilot office, they're like, you know what? You look great.
Are you serious?
I'm like, what are you talking about?
I need that.
Look great in you?
I need a copy of that newsletter that went out.
I'm telling you, I'm no kidding. In my V file, I go in there and it's a serious
certificate, full certificate
with a and I'm thinking, oh crap, what I do now? I'm thought I'm in trouble. Like, oh great, here we go.
Those days slumming it at Abercrombie and Fitch really paid off.
Working without your t-shirt off.
Stop it.
That's great.
And stop diminishing what I did, Jay. I didn't work at an Abercrombie store. I was on the wall. It's different.
Gotcha. But to go back to your question, yeah, it's not as simple or as smooth as you. A lot of them have come in with strong decisions. On like, I'm not dealing, like I'm already in the industry. I don't need my man to be in the industry as well. But I will say that that's not the case for all of them. And I dated another flight attendant for a really long time, and it was amazing. I would love to do that. That relationship ending sucked. And so, but dating a flight attendant was great. I loved it. And she was senior to me. She taught me a lot. She actually taught me how to be a better flight attendant. She's like, you're not making money this way. She's like, you're playing the game wrong. She told me, you know what I'm saying? And she put me on, and it made me a more effective and better earning flight attendant for sure. But it was great. Like, hey, do this, check this for me. yo, I saw this dope trip tomorrow, you know. And then she has her own flight benefits, so she's not taking up a slot, you know, on my travel companionship.
If anything, you're trying to get on her. She's senior.
I'm trying to get, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to get on hers. I don't got to teach her anything. She knows all the lingo. Or if I want to work with friends, because, you know, grabbing a trip with friends that you really love is hard to do. So I never felt bad about it. It was like, hey, babe, I'm going to go work with XYZ. And it's like, oh, that's dope. Bye. Have fun. And same thing for her. Like, hey, I'm working the trip with the ladies or with this person, that person. It's like, oh, yeah, that's dope. Bye. You know? And we understood it, and it was great. And didn't have to take time away to do vacation because we would just pick up trips together.
I was just gonna say, there's another couple that I know, they're pilots and they always fly together. And they're a great couple too. And I used to fly with them when I was on a different airframe, but they always pick up trips together and go places. Yeah. And at first I thought, like, why?
No, but it's like, hey, I'm craving shawarma for Tel Aviv. And it's like, do we take time away and go, or do we get paid for it and get to enjoy it on the layover? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Those are two completely different experiences. You know what I'm saying? And we did that a lot, man. We did that a lot, and I miss it. So, you know, we'll see what happens. But
did she work for the same company?
She did,
right?
Man.
Same
she
company,
did.
Right?
She did. So same company, same base.
Within the same company because it's a small.
I know, but if it's enough time period has passed, right? People eventually, you know, I would understand that for her. Like, oh, we haven't been together in 5 years.
Yeah.
You know, I think the statute of limitations has expired on that. You know, so the experience is dope, but it's not super easy.
Yeah.
You know, so we'll see. On top of all
I've never had that problem. It's pretty easy.
Yeah. Several girls have the same story about the pilot, and this dude I went to Tel Aviv with, he kept changing fedoras every hour.
And he wouldn't button his third freaking button. It drove me nuts.
Do it. His taco meat chest hair kept coming out. Well, actually, I don't have chest hair, but it kept getting caught in my tongue. That's gross. You know what? I want to. I don't think I've dated, actually.
There was never a second date. Thanks, Brandon. Well done.
There's never a second date, so I can't call it dating, right? There's got to be more than one.
Correct.
Yeah, they don't like to go on a second date with me.
Yeah, they never make it to the next pairing. Good job.
It's not you, it's me.
Jordan, are you the one that took Brandon away from the retirement party for a couple hours? Y'all Zoom call?
Oh yeah. Well, it wasn't him specifically. He did ask me to be on a panel, and I was happy to oblige because of. Yeah.
Oh, it was the night of
it was actually pretty fun.
Party? Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So I was supposed to be getting hammered with this guy at the bar or doing whatever, and I was like,
don't worry, he caught up. He went flying by.
I may or may not have ran from that Zoom meeting panel downstairs to beer.
So I know that was aviation related. Can we talk about it? If we can't, no big deal. We didn't.
Yeah. So really quickly, it was a good friend of mine from college. We went to school together, and I think now she's an educator, public speaker, or something like that. And she developed like this entire travel brand, I guess, called Latino World Travelers, just trying to kind of build a squad of people who have similar, it's multicultural, of course, but, come from similar backgrounds, maybe New York City or inner city type people that have come to learn and be obsessed with traveling. And she was definitely one of those. She was like that when we were in college, when I met her. We were coming home for spring break. She was finding a way to get across the world. And what she did was this past weekend was develop an entire digital travel, not seminar, but conference weekend, where she had several different panels discussing an array of travel and aviation topics. And she reached out to me. She's like, hey, I'm putting some industry employees together to talk more about the industry itself. She's like, I have a couple of flight attendants. Would you happen to know a pilot? And my other story, I only know one pilot.
Yeah.
Thankfully, Brandon likes to show his face and talk to people. So I was like, he might be into this kind of thing. So I reached out to him. I was like, hey, she's doing this really cool thing. And it was for the reviews. Unfortunately, I didn't get to attend or see it, but from the reviews, they said the production value was top notch, like high quality sound and video across the board, great graphics. And they said that like the panels were super diverse and a lot of fun. So it was cool. And this was her first year doing it. She had like an audience of like 500 people throughout the whole weekend, which is, I think, super successful for something, that doesn't have a global name or something like that. So it was dope. And I don't know if I got to say thank you, but I was like, you made me look good, Brandon. I appreciate you. I was like, you came in the
make you look
clutch.
good. I'm trying to come through for you, brother. It was good.
You did.
That was cool.
You did.
And you know what? We'll even put in the show notes. We can put if you text me and send me her information, we could put it in the show notes. And
yeah, for sure.
I'd be interested in checking it out just for my personal.
All 9 people that'll listen to this. Yeah. We don't have that many, but all 9 of them will go at least to take a look.
The sad thing is I've never even listened to it because you never sent me the link after the 5 times. I didn't even know the name of the podcast.
I didn't. I kept forgetting.
He's like, come and hang out. Come talk to my buddies. I was like, dude, I would love to.
What's the I'm not good at that. Public relations is Tyler's department. He's really good at
so it sounds like you guys have done
man.
It's a good face. It's a good face. But we got to be more than that, right? We just got to strive for got to be more. But podcast is something that I love and I enjoy and I'm kind of obsessed with. What are some of the podcasts that you guys really enjoy that you're like, oh, I would love to go along those lines, or I would love to just have those kind of conversations? Because I know mine. Like I know which ones I'm obsessed
Jordan,
with.
you go.
All right. So, well, the first thing that showed me what a podcast can do and be was that first season of Serial, right? Like that whole true crime wave, right? With that whole I forget his name. Anyway, that whole murder mystery, not mystery, but true crime thing. I was like, whoa, this was like when our great grandparents listened to the radio, right? Like that never made sense to me, or just something I never experienced with interest, right? Who wants to just listen? And that was the first thing that I listened to. I was like, this is dope. This makes sense. I can see what someone can do with that, especially train. Listening to the same playlist all the time could be mind numbing, right? You love it. I love music, right? As a dancer, of course, but finding something that I was like engaged with and creating questions in my mind or trying to be part of the conversation that they were having. I was like, oh, this is dope. Podcasts are dope. And then I fell in love with like the long format interviews. So I really enjoy some of the sports ones. Like I think the JJ Redick podcast is great if you're a basketball fan, especially the last, not only that, but like he's doing it in season. So like things are happening, in games and throughout the season. And then he has a guy on there like Joel Embiid, and he could ask him straight up, like, hey, there's some serious MVP, conversations about you. How do you think about that? How do you feel or whatever? And I'm a Duke basketball like fanatic. So the
family is for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So the JJ Redick podcast I love. And then there's this guy who does Armchair Expert. His name is Dax Shepard. He's the actor. He's the guy that's married to Kristen Bell, the young lady from Frozen. Yeah, so Dax has one of the biggest, most popular.
That's right.
Yeah, he was like on Punk'd is where he started, and then The Ranch on Netflix. Yeah.
I'll have to check that out because I have seen it, but I haven't downloaded it yet.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me give you a quick pitch on it. So the thing with Dax is, one, he's a recovering addict, right? Like he had a serious drug problem, whatever, and comes from a kid who was molested as a child, as well as has dyslexia. And he's very open and honest about those things and experiences. So those early episodes of that podcast were long format interviews with his peers, actors, musicians, people we know, right? So like some of your favorite actors and things. Kevin Hart's been on there. What's this guy's name? From Law and Order, the heavy guy. And he'll let you pitch your thing or whatever you're promoting, but then they'll start talking about each other's career and things like that. And then you say, oh, I had this outbreak on and I yelled at somebody, and he'll ask their deeper question, like, but what did that do with your relationship with your mother, or this or that? And like, why does your drug addiction problem stem from this? And like, he's just very open and honest. And that I really enjoyed. And I was like, yo, this is dope, because some of these actors have never been asked these questions, or have never related as much to the person that's interviewing them. And I fell in love with it. And it's called Armchair Expert, because he feels like he's kind of an expert on everything. He's like, oh, I'm a know-it-all kind of thing. So he calls himself an armchair expert. And I highly recommend that podcast.
And that's
those are the kinds of podcasts I enjoy, like those long format ones.
That's what I think podcasting does, as opposed to, say, the radio, right? It allows you to talk to someone that you relate to. And it doesn't even matter their level of quote unquote popularity. You see these super famous people go on dude's podcast that have a couple hundred or a couple thousand subscribers, and they might have like a couple million, right? But like asking those tough questions, like how did that affect your family? How did that affect your mom? Right? That's not something you see in the news when you're watching the news and like an
Entertainment Tonight,
right?
TMI,
Yep.
TMZ.
It's definitely more personal medium for sure.
Yes,
it allows you to be. But I think it's almost that last untouchable medium, because it's not really, the audience will dictate your ratings and whether or not you should be canceled or not. I think just like it should be, instead of like one particular group is going to try to cancel you. Like there's no trying to do that if they like you.
You don't stumble across a podcast. You make a choice to listen to the podcast.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And it's not, oh, I heard this cool beat and now I want to listen to everything that this artist makes. No, you got to get into a podcast to decide whether you like it or not. Yep. And I enjoy that. Like I make the choice to keep
Jordan,
my brain active.
Do you watch or listen to most of your podcasts?
That's a great question. It depends. I would say 60-40, and 60-40 is listening.
Because you can multitask.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. So like getting in a car and it's like, oh, it's going to take me an hour to get to my parents. Oh, Joe Rogan dropped a new episode. Yep. I know that this is going to get me through the whole drive. No commercials, no nothing. I am actively into this conversation, and it may take me anywhere. And I think it just in my age right now, I want to learn more about myself, and I want to learn more about other people. So I rather that than exactly. So I love it.
What about you, Brandon? What are your top three pods, or top two if JRE's up there?
This one would be number one. Number two.
You have never listened to a podcast that you didn't edit.
I have not.
You didn't edit. That's great.
I can't stand hearing my voice, really. And when I listen to the ones that we've done, I was like, oh, that was stupid. I'm always critiquing instead of trying to enjoy what it is that the people are saying. So yeah, you're right. I don't like listening to it. I did the same thing, like, when I was doing some acting and commercials or whatever. I never watched the commercials.
Do you notice yourself critiquing other podcasts though? Or
absolutely.
Or like, I like that, or I didn't like that type thing.
It's mostly that. It's mostly, I don't like critiquing in a negative way, because you never know what's going on in someone's head or in someone's podcast, what they were thinking. It might be an artistic thing, or it might just be something happening with the recording, whatever. But I do like takeaways. I definitely, that was a good one. That was a good question. Or I like the way he did that. And I know we've had these conversations before, trying to hone and really get good at what we're doing here. So we definitely do our homework in that regard. But I mean, as far as listening to them, I'm big into, there's one that I like, Earn Your Leisure. It's these brothers.
Oh yeah, the two guys. Yeah.
Yeah. And they talk from like a really grassroots bootstrap business side, guerrilla business, nothing illegal, but I don't know, it might be someone's doing something.
No, but just smart, logical choices that people aren't thinking about.
Yeah, smart, logical, financial choices that these guys that they throw out there, and they interview people, and they kind of talk things through. I like that one. It's more intimate. it's as if I'm in the room with a couple of buddies of mine. And that's why I kind of like the podcast game. And I listen to them. JRE, of course, just for the more entertainment value, and you can touch people that you've never.
That dude's amount of knowledge really pushes a lot of those conversations.
Yeah, and he does his homework. Well, when you get 30 million a year podcasting, you need to be doing some homework. And
so. Do you think I don't know that he does. He might do homework on some, but I don't know that he does homework on all of them.
I think
he just knows things.
I think he does a lot on him with himself. Yeah, he knows things himself, and I think because he's been wrong, and he doesn't mind being wrong, and he's had guests that check him on his shit, and he's like, oh yeah, that's good. Yeah, you're right. So I think he's honed his skill as someone that interviews someone else and how to just be a better interviewer. And I think that's what I like about Joe Rogan.
Yep. No, he covers so many different topics, and he lets them go deep, even if he doesn't understand them or agree with them. Like he'll challenge them in a respectful way. It's not like you're an idiot, but so tell me, why do you think that? And then, well, the facts say this, or I heard that, and again, that's the long form versus the CNN Fox News clip where you have 30 seconds to annihilate your guest and make you sound right and make them sound wrong. So
what about you, Tyler? What are your favorites?
I'll throw two out there. Besides Jerry, he's a regular on my playlist. The Matt Josh Savan podcast. It's a CrossFit podcast. So if you're not into CrossFit, you probably aren't going to care.
This one got fired, right?
He got fired. So Savan he was the media director at CrossFit for a lot of years. And then when they just had hired a new CEO, but I like him because I like his interviewing style, because he's that guy that asks, like, how does your mother feel? Right. So I like hearing those types of questions, and more it's me like taking notes than anything. But the other two people that are on the podcast are Matt Frazier, he's won the CrossFit Games 5 consecutive times. And the other one's Josh Bridges, a former Navy SEAL and a competitor in CrossFit.
So that second guy, that's that CrossFit guy. Like, we all know the one that won it.
Okay, well, gotcha. You may know Froning also.
Froning.
Oh, no, I'm talking Froning. Froning.
Okay. And and that was the other thing too, is there's some beef between Froning and Frazier, which kind of made it interesting. And Frazier was just on the Joe Rogan podcast a couple weeks ago, and he said some things that pissed a lot of people off. So they address it on there as well. So I guess that's like my quote unquote drama for the week when that comes out. And then the other one I just found the other day was the TB12 podcast.
Oh yeah, Tom Brady.
Yep. It's not Tom Brady. He's not the host, but it's obviously his brand. And the athletes they have on there and the questions they ask, it's like an hour and a half podcast, and it's thoroughly engaging.
Is it good? Really?
It is good.
I have it in my list and downloaded a couple, the first few, but I haven't tried them yet.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Can I make one honorable mention that's kind of like out of the pack?
100%.
Because again, I'm obsessed with the long format interview, and I think I have the personality for it, so I love it. But it's not really a podcast. You guys watch Hot Ones on YouTube?
Yes, the wings.
It's the show with hot questions and even hotter wings. My man Sean Evans is one of the best interviewers and researchers around. Highly recommend it. It's a simple concept.
It's
done
hilarious.
To perfection. It is just done to perfection. So it's him in a room with some celebrity actor, scientist, whoever it is, like Bill Nye the Science Guy has been on there, the whole gamut of people. You sit down, we're going to eat 10 chicken wings from left to right, starting in a lower level of spiciness all the way to the highest level that they have.
A horrible idea.
And it's simple, but it is done and he eats them with you.
No.
And yeah, man. And it's not a podcast, but it's on YouTube. And every time a new episode drops, it is fantastic. And if you fail, if you quit and you don't eat all 10 wings, you get put on the wall of shame.
Oh my God. And I gotta say, nobody wants to be on the wall of shame.
It's
happened.
awesome. So honestly, I haven't watched it ever since COVID because, and it probably is good. It's probably my ignorance or whatever.
But it's
I
not
like
the same.
them.
It's not the
I
same.
like them sitting at the same table. I don't want them doing it over Zoom. You
I
know. So that.
Oh, is that what they're doing now? Oh, yeah.
That's what they're doing now.
But the show must go on, right? Like you have to adapt. Yep. You got no choice. You
adapt and overcome. Yep.
Yeah, this thing gets 10 million views in a week. You got to adapt. You got to figure it out. So I hated it also, but then the performer in me now enjoys critiquing the artist's like setup. If their audio is crappy, if they have multiple camera angles, you know what I'm saying? Like who did they have on there? Like my man Keenan Thompson from SNL, who's been on like an SNL forever. He did an episode recently, and I don't find him all that interesting. And I loved his Hot Ones interview. Like I learned a lot more about him. But he had like good audio, he had good, clear, video. And I was like, all right, cool. I appreciate that.
The artist.
I feel like it made it harder for the guest. Like the guest has to earn it too. And then I pay attention to if the artist is like pouring the sauce on there, or they've already like sauced it beforehand, right? Like they had to make their own choice on that. I find that kind of stuff interesting.
I gotta check it out. The Hot
Funny.
Ones it's on YouTube. It's YouTube.
Yep, it's YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube. Yep.
Okay.
It's a complex show, complex property.
And like he says, the interview is very like organized, in depth, and the questions get hotter as the hot sauce gets hotter.
Yeah.
I told
like
Stu,
high. They get high. They start to like feel like euphoric feelings, and they're like, I'm sweating and I'm snotty. And he's like, let's talk about working with Pacino, and was that fun, and like crazy stuff, It's fun.
Well, we got a buddy locally. He started a hot sauce company, and I always wanted him to get his sauce on there.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Well, his aren't that hot though. They're good, flavorful. He
could start off in the low to mild section.
Definitely. So is that kind of the gimmick too? They put each
it's different hot sauce every time.
Yeah. Yep. Right. Every season, here's taking a simple concept to the max. Ready? Every season now the sauces change. We have some staples that we know. Number 8, the bomb, is always going to be the hottest, and it's going to drive the person crazy. So like the audience knows what's up. They've developed a subscription service where every month they now send you hot sauces. Like the fans, they call the fans Spice Lords. Like they've completely expanded the brand.
I did not know that.
Some of the sauces on the lineup are now, some of the sauces on the lineup are now created by them. They're like, oh, this is our sauce. And like they've nailed it. And they've nailed it. You got to check it out. And the subscription box comes out and you get all the sauces for that season. And then if special ones come out, you get them also. Like it's genius.
Yeah, I didn't know about the subscription part. That's legit. That's like Stewie does need to get on that for sure. But
I think they call them hot boxes. You can't get easier than that.
What? They call them? Really?
Play on words.
So. Talk about entendres. Well, we're about an hour and a half in, man. This has been the fact that you've been able to take the mantle of 2 guests, Jay, really says something about your character and your ability to pull the crowd.
Yeah, you've done great. I'd love for you to come back in a month or 2 and talk about those changes that you've noticed at the airline from the flight attendant's perspective.
Yeah, for sure. I would love to. I'm clueless as to what the service is like these days. I am really anxious to see what that's like.
It's interesting. You just wait. It's interesting for sure. But and he'll definitely be back on, Tyler, for sure. We're gonna do another expose.
Yeah, I love this stuff, man. Anytime. Have you guys checked out the Mike Tyson podcast?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He's probably not my
favorite.
Good. But he's good. He's better than I thought he'd be.
He's good. It depends on the guest. You can't just listen to any guest. You got to listen to a guest that you're really in it with. But I did like his co-host, and they freaking fired him, man.
Really?
The football
like
player.
That guy. Yeah.
I think it was a contract issue.
He wanted more money.
They didn't want to pay him more money.
Yeah.
And instead of Mike stepping up and being like, nah, that's my guy, make it happen, he didn't step up.
Mike Tyson's not going to do it. Come on. As long as he's getting his, I think. I'm not saying he's not generous, but he's a pretty shrewd business person. Put it that way. He is now. He's had to be. He got taken advantage of. So, I mean.
The Darren Woodson podcast is pretty good, too.
Oh, you told me about that.
Yep.
Darren.
How about I Am Athlete? Have you checked out I Am Athlete?
No.
That's Brandon Marshall, the wide receiver.
Oh yeah.
So, but it's a collective. It's 4 of them. It's Chad Ochocinco, Brandon Marshall, and 2 others that are like Pro Bowlers, but football's not really my game. So they were like, one was like a second string running back, and I don't know him that well, but all had successful careers in the NFL, and it's called I Am Athlete. But they don't talk sports. They talk movies, music, life, pain management, investing, because Brandon Marshall's really on his like tycoon thing. I know you like to look at other businessmen and their models and the things that how they move. Brandon Marshall's that guy.
Really?
Yeah.
Take a page out of Jordan's
for real. Because they were on another podcast that I love, Drink Champs. You ever watch Drink Champs? If you're a hip hop fan, Drink Champs.
That's what we're trying to be.
They literally get the guests drunk within like the 2 hours, and they're just talking about crazy.
YouTube is single-handedly about to destroy all the networks.
It already has. Hasn't it already though? Like
it could kill universities. I call it YouTube University. It's free tuition. You can learn anything you would ever wanted right there on YouTube.
Yep.
You're absolutely right.
It's changing the game. It's getting rid of all the historical barriers, the expensive university, the getting through to the network to get your own show or to get your idea on there. Anybody with a little creativity
make it big,
can make it now.
They may not kill it, but they'll get enough to,
if they've got talent, someone will find them now. Someone will be like, hey, come under, let me produce this for you, or let me distribute it for you, or whatever. Let me do the legwork. Let's make this a business. It's absolutely amazing. I look at media the way it is from a YouTube perspective, and all you need is an iPhone and an internet connection and a free editing software.
And you can build anything.
You can build anything, right? And you take that and you use the blockchain. You got Bitcoin. Like, pretty soon, like, what are we gonna need borders for? Like, governments, you know what I mean? Like, what are these governments really doing for us? Like, you could figure out what you actually need from the government and take care of that at the most local level. And then,
I think that's what's scaring government. That's why they want to get.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Regulation. Yeah. I mean, you can't blame them because you're absolutely right. Why do you think these institutions, like you said, Jordan, like, why do you think these institutions are scared? Because the education's out there and they're not the keepers of it anymore. Safety's out there, information's out there, and these keepers, historic keepers of the information and safety and security and all this stuff, they're not in control anymore, and it scares them.
And it's not only YouTube anymore, guys.
No,
it's not only YouTube. TikTok,
Clubhouse
teaches. You have therapists on there giving millions of dollars of therapy just out on their stream. Hey, is this something that you would want to talk to somebody? Here are some of the common things that I've come across through my years of therapy and study. Free therapy. These experts.
Zero copay.
Yeah. These experts that are sitting at home, you know, these prop masters who made all these wonderful things in movie magic are sitting at home, either retired or not making as many movies because the industry's changed with COVID, are like, hey, let me show you how I make this. Like, you learn things on TikTok, not just looking at people's pictures. These experts that are sitting at home are like, let me teach them my 30 years in the industry, this or that, or whatever the case may be. It's phenomenal, man. I love it. It's crazy.
You know, and there's two facets to that, and this is definitely not a political statement. I think if they do free education, it'll expedite that process, right? I mean, look at what the price of tuition did when government subsidized loans, right? Now the government's going to just take care of it all. It's going to skyrocket, which puts an end date to the product that an institution like a university would put out. But take COVID, for example, because one of the benefits of going to college is the network that you build, right? COVID, my professional network has expanded dramatically during COVID. And it's all Zoom calls, podcasts, social media, DMs, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you know, it's like I've probably met
not one handshake.
Not one handshake. Well, one handshake. Brandon's buddy, Donnie G, he was on the podcast a while back. Yeah. Never met the dude in my life, right? He was on the cool podcast. Stuff. I had him on a business podcast. And he was down here for the Super Bowl, and we hung out and drank beer and ripped shots before the game.
Oh,
you know, it's like,
man.
You know, and if you're in Tampa, I expect a fucking text message, dude.
Hell
you know,
yeah.
it's like, you know, so
where in Tampa?
South Tampa. I'm about 10 minutes south of the airport.
Oh, okay, perfect. Gotcha.
Yep.
All right.
So, social media is enabling that networking capability that you used to have to rely on at a university. So
very much so.
Lots of changes coming. It's going to be exciting to watch. Hopefully, you know, all of us in one way, shape, or form will be a positive part of the change.
You got to be open to it, though. We have to be open to that change. If we're not open to it, then we have
right.
But
that's what I was going to say. It's got to be a decision that you've made now. Like, whatever the change is, I'm willing to be a positive part of it.
I got to tell you, it's hard. It's not easy for me. You know, hell, going back to school, thinking I need to do that myself, and then seeing Tyler do it exponentially without going back to school. I'm like, well, damn, what am I doing? What are we?
The molds no longer exist. The old ways no longer exist. You got to tell your kids this, you know, or you as a parent. I know both of you, Tyler said you didn't have kids, but I know Brandon just had a baby not that long ago, you know, and you gotta start looking at how the world is playing the game now. And pass forward that information.
Like in 10 years, 20 years, it's going to be it's just not going to be the same. And it needed to change. We still in an education system that was based on industrial age, and we've been out of that industrial age for quite some time now, and we're into this information age, and we weren't ready. And now we have to change how we teach our kids. And for me, coming from that old school environment, it's tough to grab hold of. And I know it's hard for a lot of parents. So we can't ignore that also. Even though we want to be a part of a positive transfer, it's hard. And we got to start talking, have better conversations about it, and help each other understand it, and just get it out there. It's one of those things. The wave is coming. Ain't no stopping it. So what are we going to do?
One of my most favorite common phrases, hey man, I'm so bad at words, is how about I check
a podcast you could practice.
I'm like, how about I check the supercomputer in my pocket, right? Like anytime you get a question, you no longer, I mean, I was having a conversation with a millennial a couple of months ago, and I explained to her what, you know, encyclopedias were and how you had to get a new set every couple of years.
The Britannicas.
You know, and my dad, he's finally getting it after like 5 years. Like, we'll have a conversation. He'll ask a question. I'm like, man, if only we could, you know, had a supercomputer in our pocket, or I'd spell out Google to him, or, you know, but he finally gets it now. Now, instead of asking me a stupid question, he just Googles it, you know, and they're not stupid questions because they're the questions that people have asked during a conversation for, in his case, you know, 60 years.
Yeah.
And now the conversation's evolving because we don't have to ask the questions anymore.
We could actually
what?
just ask the question to the sky, right? Like, hey, Google, how deep is the ocean? You know,
Yeah.
Alexa, how, you know, you don't even got to talk to the
But
supercomputer.
in that vein, I think it's changed how we interact to the extent that we don't know how to interact. We don't know how to BS each other. There used to be this beautiful dance between people where you ask a question and somebody doesn't know, so then you BS your way through the answer, or you try to think, you know, you try to pull the crowd as if you know the answer, and you have this dance with somebody, and they had to go somewhere else to outside of the conversation to get the answer. Then they realize, you know what, that dude was wrong, man. What the hell was he talking about? And then the next time you see him, you have this dance again. So we don't do that anymore. We don't have this. And I'm using just the BSing session as an example, but I mean, even not even BSing. We used to engage and interact, and we're not doing that anymore the same traditional way.
Yep.
So this transition is tough for folks in my generation that grew up in the middle of it. So I remember rotary phones, or hell, I remember party lines in New York, and then all the way up to where we are now, and everything in between. So that Generation X, man, we've seen it all, kind of, right? In lack of a better term, it's tough to come to terms with how we're talking to each other now and how we interact. I had a conversation with my daughter, and it was like she was texting me, and she was standing right in front of me. Like,
How old is she now?
16. Yeah.
Does she even giggle anymore? Does she just say LOL?
Yeah, it's almost like that. Her emotions are emojis.
Yeah.
You know, read my emotion, Dad.
So I don't know if you guys have seen like the Apple Glass. You know, they had like the Google glasses. Like, so these things are coming, right? Like, imagine it, and I might be like creating something right now, and you guys are here for it, and someone else is going to make billions of dollars off it. Not that they'll watch this and think of it, but that they'll think of it too. Is like, imagine like walking around with these on, and you have emoji mode on. And anytime like you like look across the table and Brandon's sitting there laughing at some other story unrelated, and it does like the crying face emoji, you know, like in your glasses, and you're just like looking around and you see someone angry, and it's like the red angry face emoji.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the VR implications that are coming with that.
It's coming.
It's coming. It's going to be so
well,
weird.
For me, it's going to be the education and training type stuff. Like, imagine your CQ or pilot training with something like that. Is going to be
one
insane.
Of our guys is working on that, on the simulation portion. He just talked about, and his PhD was on, help me out, so it was a cognitive something, big word. I know Todd's not good at words, me either, but he's dealing with that VR. He's putting VR goggles on you, giving you a joystick or a flying stick of some sort, and saying, go do this mission, or, you know, giving you a toy gun, go do this. And you're walking and you're actually interacting, and they're measuring your reactions in your brain to help you better to make you more aware of the emotion you're in when something happens, and then how to control it. And not in terms of controlling yours, but at recognizing it, finding ways to suppress it so you can get the mission done. So it's more military based. And then he's moving that to aviation. It's incredible stuff.
Yeah, surgery. I mean,
everything.
Endless. It's the first time I ever played the PlayStation virtual reality, I was obsessed. I said the implications of this moving forward in history is just unmatched. It's just insane.
It's gonna happen. And Orlando's actually, they have a really huge research center here, and we're kind of the.
You think Disney doesn't want that technology?
Exactly.
Right.
We're kind of the epicenter. It's attached over here. It's called Research Park, and there are a few firms there that are associated, contractors that are associated with the military. They do a lot of simulation. I had a mentor of mine that was over there, and a business mentor, and that was his main thing. He started with video games, man. And then it turned into these military level simulations that the military bought and other places buy. So there's a lot going on, a lot in the mix, and many different applications. And we're barely even like tip of the iceberg type of analogy. It's huge. But Jay, thank you. You're gonna be on again for sure.
Can't wait.
And you got a list for me for some other flight attendants that would be engaging, because I do want to get more flight attendants, because I know a lot of guys are, especially flight attendants, were affected a lot by this furlough stuff. So I want to get them on the show, tell their story, and see how they're doing. So.
Well, none of my closest friends were furloughed. So if you want that, then I'll go find that.
No, well, whoever. Okay. I mean, they know somebody that knows.
I mean, we took the leaves, so it was basically choice, furlough by choice. You know what I'm saying?
That's another aspect too. So
yeah,
exploring.
Yeah.
We
Well, gentlemen,
brother. We'll talk.
I had a blast, man. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.